Hi, this is Dawn Whiteside. I'm going to be doing the webinar tonight. I just want to do a little sound check. If you can hear me, please raise your hand. Okay, just one more sound check. If you can hear me okay, please raise your hand. Awesome, thank you. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started. My name's Dawn Whiteside. I'm the Director of Education at CCI. The objectives for tonight, we're going to give an overview of the CSSM certification program itself, outline the application process, describe the recertification requirements for the CSSM because it's very different than CNOR, and talk about the professional points method as your recertification option. So for those of you on the webinar tonight, how many of you already have your CNOR? Raise your hand. Okay, about 2/3. I'm going to put your hands down now. How many of you are already planning to sit for the CSSM? Okay, so this is a great way to get introduced and see what it's all about. Disclaimer, we show this anytime we present, just to let you know that CCI does not require you to purchase any of our content, our prep courses, any of our study materials. None of that is required for testing, and it doesn't mean you would have an edge over somebody who does not. So the CSSM credential, like I said, is very different than the CNOR. We'll talk about the differences, but big overview. The CNOR is for 5 years. The CSSM is for 3. The CSSM is only a points recertification method. CNOR, you can still currently use points, contact hours, or take the exam again, but that will be changing as well. The point of having professional development and lifelong learning is where we go to when we look at the professional points method. No longer is sitting in a chair at your weekly huddle listening to a sales rep for 1 contact hour and eating a donut. That doesn't really validate competency. So our accreditation organizations are requiring us to evaluate current process and move to one that is more meaningful, which is the points activities, which other organizations currently use as well. So once you take the exam, you will put together a professional development plan based on your scores, and this is where you would earn your points for your recertification process. Eligibility. So you must have an unrestricted current registered nurse license. We get asked a lot, I'm in a management role, but I don't have an RN license. So you're the manager of CS or manager of another unit, but you do not have an RN license. You are not eligible to apply. Academic degree, it does require a bachelor's, but it can be either in arts or science. We do random audits. A percentage of applications are audited, and if you were to be audited, you would have to supply a transcript of your bachelor's degree. Eligibility for employment, you must be currently employed, either part-time or full-time. Some volunteer work counts as well. You must have a minimum of 2 or 4 years of experience in a management role, and that's going to be based on your current CNOR status. And like I said, volunteer does count, and if you had questions about that, just call us at CCI and we can look at your experience and let you know. You do not have to have manager in your title. Excuse me. So if you oversee personnel, a budget, a unit of service, a service line, that all counts. Educator, charge nurse, it does not have to say manager of a specific unit or department. Perioperative coursework related to management. This is another requirement. And again, it's going to be based on your current CNOR certification status. So you will need either 30 or 50 continuing education contact hours, and that has to be in the 7 topics. Any of these 7 topics, you have to have 30 or 50. These 7 topics or subject areas are the content that's on the exam. So here's a breakdown of CNOR versus non-CNOR. So if you have your CNOR, you have to have your bachelor's, then you need 2 years and, not or, 2 years and 2,400 hours of surgical services management experience and 30 contact hours related to those 7 domain subject areas. Non-CNOR, bachelor's, then you do need 4 years and 4,800 hours of management experience. Then you would also need 50 contact hours related to those 7 subject areas. Do not apply for the exam until you have those contact hours completed. If you did not complete them before you apply, you would not be eligible. So don't start an application thinking, well, I'll be done with my contact hours by the time I get approved and sit for the exam. It is part of your eligibility, so you would not be approved. For those of you who are going back to school, academic coursework would also count. Same thing, past 2 years, don't apply until it is completed. So CNOR, you would have 6 hours of domain-specific content. Non-CNOR, you would need 12 hours related to those subject areas. The registration process, what do you need to do? You have to have your nursing license. You're going to have to enter that information. You're going to have to enter CE or academic coursework information. You won't need to supply the actual documentation unless you are audited. And then listing of your work experience, and that has to include your supervisor contact information. All CSSM exam applications must be completed online. cc-institute.org is our website address, so that's where you would go. You have a CCI account. If you do not have one already, you need to create one, but if you are CNOR, you obviously already have one. If you haven't logged in a while and you don't remember your password, call us at CCI and we can reset that for you in like 30 seconds. So log into your CCI account and then select Apply for Certification, CSSM application. On your personal profile page, which will come up once you log in, there are different tabs at the top. These all need to be completed to get to the application itself. So there's a tab that says degree, RN license, coursework, experience. So all of that information needs to be completed. There is a yellow pencil if it's not completed, and you get a thumbs up when it is completed. So take a look at that. And again, a certain percentage of applicants do get submitted for audit. Once the application has been approved, you'll receive an email confirmation, and in that email, there'll be an ATT letter, an authorization to test letter. You need this to actually schedule your appointment. There's a 90-day testing window, which begins the first day of the month after you're accepted. So if you apply today, January 10th, and you're approved, you cannot take the exam until February, March, or April. So it's the following 3 months after the month you were approved in. You will select the testing date yourself. Prometric testing centers, they're all over the place, 300 plus, usually open Monday through Saturday. You will go to their website and select your testing location and time. Current fees to take the CSSM, if you are CNO certified, it's $275. If you are not, it's $350. Please always check our website for the most up-to-date prices. So the exam itself, what do you need to know? There are 180 questions on the exam. Only 150 of those are scored. You have to answer all 180 or they will be marked wrong. 30 of those questions are considered pre-test items. So depending on how the scores go on those items, they may or may not appear on future tests and be scored. So you can't tell the difference. Make sure you're answering them all. Here's a breakdown of those 7 subject areas that we showed you. Communication and relationship management, strategic management, financial, human resources, op-man, leadership, and professionalism. In the middle column, this is the percentage for each of those subject areas to be on the exam. So the biggest one is obviously operational management. That's 22% of the exam, and that's 40 questions. This information and more details are in the CSSM handbook, which you can download off of our website. The only type of question that CCI uses regardless of the credential is multiple choice. There's 4 plausible answers and only 1 correct. It would never be a multiple. So A, B, C, but not D. No true, false, no essay questions. There's no pictures. It's actually impossible to put pictures on the Prometric platform. So question, 1 answer. Here's an example. The capital of Michigan is. So all of these options are actually plausible because they are all cities in Michigan, but only one is the capital. So Lansing is the capital of Michigan. So you can see the question part is called the STEM, correct answer, and then the other ones are called distractors because they're plausible, but they are not correct. Obviously, this is not an example of an exam question that would be on the exam. When you go to a testing center, depending on when you had your CNOR, you may or may not have experienced the heightened security. When I first did mine, it was on paper, and it was not at a testing center, but I did take a certification exam for educators last year. So it was good to be able to experience what that testing center was like for everyone who's going through that now. So it is heightened security, much like an airport. You will probably be wanded. They may have you pull your pockets inside out, unroll your cuffs, anything like that to make sure that you don't have anything as far as sample questions or information with you. The only thing you can take into the testing cubicle with you is your ID and a key to your locker. Your locker's probably smaller than the one you had in kindergarten. It's very tiny. So don't take a bunch of stuff with you. I wouldn't recommend putting it in the car either. Obviously, they're not responsible if something's stolen. So not a lot of room. Take your ID and they'll give you a key to your locker. So you can't take anything in, but you can request. If you're worried about noises or anything like that, you can't take your own earplugs, but if that's something you want, you can ask them. If you feel like you want or need scratch paper, you can do that. They will count those pieces out. They'll say, here's 6 pieces of paper and a pencil. And when you leave, they will take those 6 pieces back. So you won't be able to take anything with you when you leave. Prometric testing centers are for many different specialties. It's not just all nursing or medical. There's plumbers, there's electricians. So there are a lot of different people there at the same time. It is possible to mark items and return to them. One recommendation I have is if you're like me and you read through questions really fast and you may or may not pick up on all the cues, I went through and I did the tutorial at the beginning. This doesn't count against your time, but it shows you how to mark questions. You can use a highlighter. So that's what I did. I would read the question, read through the options, and then take the highlighter, read the question again, and highlight keywords, and then answer the question. At the end, you can do the review screen, and you can elect to look through all the items or just the ones you marked. And then you can do all that before you hit submit. It's not a variable exam like the NCLEX. It's not going to shut off when you get enough right to pass. So make sure you do answer every question. The scoring is another question we get a lot. It's called a scaled score, and its passing is 620 and above. This isn't equal to 70%, 80%. Prometric testing centers have this scoring option that requires a mathematician to figure it out. But just to know that 620 is the passing score and 800 are possible. You will know at the testing center if you pass or fail. And make sure at the end of it, you'll have a survey come up. And after that, you should get something on the screen that says, if you pass, it'll say congratulations. If you do not get that, you will receive at some point after that what is called a score report. It'll be in your CCI account. This score report will say how you scored in each of those 7 areas. This will be your professional development plan moving forward of how you need points. Resources for the exam, error and guidelines, the most can be either Rothrock or Phillips, one or the other. You don't need both. As far as management textbooks, we know they're expensive, and we're often asked, okay, if I just had to buy 1 or 2, what should I buy? These are the 2 we recommend. There's more than this in the handbook that you can look at. But K. Fox and Ehrman, I would go for first. And then if you want more information specifically focusing on finance, because that's where people tend to be a little less confident, then Penner would be the option. We do offer on-demand prep classes. If you want them, again, not required, doesn't give you an edge, is not an indicator of how you will score. But we do have on-demand prep classes. You would have 6 months access to the course and the CSSM exam prep book. They are pre-recorded presentations. There are practice questions throughout. If you have questions, you can email us and we'll respond to those, and you would earn 12 CE. Those 12 CE can be used as part of your application, your eligibility. So if you're CNOR, you need 30 in those 7 subject areas. This prep class will give you 12 of those. We also do offer a CSSM practice exam as well. All of that's available in the bookstore, but again, not required to take the exam. Recertification, there's just two options for recertification. Excuse me. You can take the exam again, which most people do not opt for, or completing the professional points activities. You have to pre-plan, and it should start as soon as you get that score report. I'll go through the different points activities that are available. We did just add a bunch of them. So it is going to look at your initial score to determine what your next recertification looks like. So no one can recertify just by doing contact hours. You can still do 50, which would equal 100 points, but you need more points than that to recertify. So recertification, you have to plan, you have to be committed to the process, look at your score report, decide what you need to do, where you're going to go for your points activities. The credential cannot be maintained again just by CE. This is an example of what a score report would look like. And you can see on the right-hand column, it's telling you those 7 subject areas. And then if you scored at, above, or below competency. So on the next page, we'll look here so that the certificate has scored at or above competency in 6 of the 7 categories. They scored below competency in 1. So human resources, you can see here, number 4, scored below. The rest are at or above. The certificate has to earn 250 points to recertify. Half of those have to be in human resources. So if you are below competency in any of them, you will have to do points in that category. If you're below in 2 categories, then that half would be split up between those 2 categories. So these are the professional points activities that we offer on our website. Some are things that you do every day in your practice, and some are ones that we offer in our bookstore that are free. So again, continuing education, 1 contact hour equals 2 points, and you do have a maximum of 100 points here. Academic study, it's the only one without a limit. If you're going back to school, all of your coursework would count towards your recertification. If you're teaching at a college, you can use points there. Publishing, if you write a chapter in a book, if you review a chapter in a book, all of these. Professional presentations, if you are presenting at your facility or at a national meeting, if you have contact hours offered for your presentation, you get points. And we also give points for 60-minute presentations that don't offer contact hours. Again, maximum of 150 points. If you're on a board or a committee, shared governance committee at your facility, anything like that, we do have 2 board and committees at CCI that we are always looking for members to volunteer there. We have a call for volunteers that goes out. So if you're on the CCI Board of Directors, you get 50 points a year, and our Certification Council is also 50 points a year. If you're doing any mentoring or precepting, that's worth 25 points per employee. You can have 4, so there's another 100 points. Other committees at CCI specifically, test development. This is a really important way that we love having our new CSSM participate. There's a specific demographic and all that we have to have for our accreditation. So job analysis committee, these are the people who are certified like you will be, and they come and they talk about, well, this is what I do in my daily work. So those 7 subject areas with the percentages, those come from people who are on the job analysis committee. They go through and say, this is how I spend my time, this is how it should be scored. These committees are the ones that determine what those percentages are. Recertification Committee, I'm in charge of this committee, and this is where we came up with a bunch of more categories and points activities. So this is a continual rolling out of new activities. So keep an eye on our bookstore. Again, they're free. And then product volunteers. We have a call every year for volunteers to help us write questions for the CSSM practice exam, the CNOR practice exam, flashcards, all of that. So if you volunteer and you're accepted for that, you can earn points there. Other perioperative related certifications, like I am RN-BC, so I'm certified by ANCC as an educator. That counts. It can be initial and recert in the same accrual period. Clinical inquiry, volunteer service. These are the ones that we did new from the recertification committee. So we have professional organization activities. These are organizations that we are partnering with, like Beyond Clean, who has CS content, OR Manager. All of those, there's content that you review, and then there's 10 question or 20 question activity that you complete. Training certificates, this is another one where people were saying that they thought that their BLS or ACLS should really count. So again, your BLS, ACLS, PALS, NRP, it does have to be by an approved provider, and there's only 3 of those that we accept: American Heart, Red Cross, and then the Military Training Network. And here are the last group of points activities. Reflections, those are activities that are 25 points apiece. Games, we have crossword puzzles in there, case studies, and then additional points activities, journal articles, anything like that. Again, these are in our bookstore, and you can go through and purchase those for free and then check out, and they would be in your classroom. So that was last year's webinar. So recertification, it's a 3-step process. You need to submit your application and have all of your points logged into your profile. So log into your profile where it says continuing education. There's a part there where it says report points. Put all of your points activities in there. Submit your application. Once your application has been approved, you're not being audited, anything like that, then you will have to go to a Prometric testing center to take an assessment. So don't freak out. The assessment is not pass or fail. 50 questions. As soon as you complete that assessment, you will get your new certificate. This is a way for us to test where you currently are at. So this will tell you where your points are going to be for the next 3 years. So 2019, if you pass the exam in 2019, your accrual period for those points activities begins January 1st of 2019 and ends December 31st of 2020. So you have those 2 years to get your points completed. January 1st of 2021 is when you would submit your recertification application. So even if you pass the exam in November of 2019, you can count any points you had starting January 1st of 2019. You get the full year and then all of 2020 to get those points completed. Your credential will expire on December 31st of 2021, and you cannot earn points during 2021. If you're getting to 2020 and you don't think you're going to have your points, you can file for an extension year that will give you an extra year. The handbook, again, download that from our website. It has tons of information. Make sure you're planning ahead, knowing what categories you need points in. If someone is a CSSM, they do have the option to go emeritus. They're retiring the credential. They still can use CSSM after their name, but they need to have E in parentheses for emeritus. If you are CSSM and you go emeritus, you are still able to volunteer at CCI. You would not be required to earn points or pay a fee every so many years. It's a one fee, you're done. But if you still want to give back and volunteer, you still can be a member of our board of directors or other volunteer as an emeritus. CCI staff, Emily Schinderline, she is our credentialing specialist and volunteer coordinator. I'm the director of education, and then Jim Stabinsky is our CEO. So if you have questions, those are our email addresses. Please, contact us if you have any questions. And that is it for now. So if you have questions, you can raise your hand or type it in the chat box or type it in the question box. I'm not seeing any hands, so I'll wait to see if you have something you're going to put in the chat room or in the questions. No questions. I must have answered them all during the presentation. Okay, well, here's our contact information. If you want to contact us, just call CCI or shoot us an email, and we will get back to you usually within 24 hours on a work day. And thank you for spending an evening learning about the CSSM. Thank you. Good night.